To commence this, we have online Councillors Bartley, Newman, Williamson. This is an extraordinary meeting. How extraordinary? Is there any apologies from anybody? Nope. Declarations, public input? No. No input. No. This is an extraordinary item. So it's right. This is we are here to discuss something which I don't like doing at all, which is from Watercare in seeking an extra $130 million of largely temporary debt. Now, this year I'm going to be stricter with questions anyhow, so I assume you've read the report, so I'm trying to be short and get to the point. If you've got a question, put a question. Questions end in question marks, not full stops, so I'm going to get tougher this year. Righto, this is to approve an increase in available debt. It mentions that it's largely temporary, so I want to have a quick background on absolutely why you need it. And being temporary, that means when will you restore yourself to the normal level? We're trying to restrict everybody's appetite for debt. And so I'm not happy to have these sorts of meetings, but I'm quite prepared to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Kia ora, good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the introduction for this item. I'm going to hand over to Jamie from Watercare to talk about the drivers and to answer some of the questions you've already posed and outline the key details of the request before I cover off some of the group implications for the council group.
Thank you very much, Jamie. We'll welcome to the screen, and you cover off why and for how long. In New Zealand and in Auckland in particular, nothing is so permanent as something called temporary. So I want to have this temporary. I want to have an E at the bottom of the recommendation, which says when and how this will be returned to your normal debt level ceiling, please.
Kia ora, Mayor. Kia ora everybody, thanks Pramod. Yeah, thanks very much for firstly taking the time to meet with us today on this. It is appreciated. I will take the report as read and make, as you alluded to, Mayor, some introductory remarks, outline what we're asking for, why, and what the future position looks like. So our ask today is for the governing body to support making available additional debt financing for Watercare of $130 million for the remainder of this financial year. Watercare accepts and acknowledges the important role it plays as part of the council whānau, and whilst this additional debt financing can be accommodated by council, and I'll leave Pramod to talk to that, it does slightly increase council's debt to revenue ratio. It's important to note that granting this request does not impact Auckland Council's budget position. Watercare is self-funding. By that I mean we cover all interest costs associated with our borrowing and cover all operating costs associated with the assets we build and maintain. And you saw some of them today with Steve's presentation. In short, approving this request doesn't detrimentally impact our council family, but does slightly increase council's debt position. I want to talk now to some of the reasons. But before then, I'll actually just note that, just touching on your point, Mayor Brown, that included in our plans and our thinking for the forthcoming year is that we, from 1 July this coming year, the new financial year, we have planned and budgeted to align ourselves to the expectation that you have set for us around debt and around our debt to revenue position. So this is indeed a really short-term credit extension until we reset those parameters at 1 July, at which time we are coming back under your expectation around 340% debt to revenue. Reasons for the request, they are outlined in the paper, but in summary, the Orake sewer overflow and anniversary flood events both of those were touched on today by Steve. Look, they have had major impacts on Watercare and Watercare's assets, and whilst I'm very proud of the work that Watercare did alongside council and other agencies in relation to those issues, there have been and continue to be ongoing costs associated with remedying both the impacts of the flood and also now the remediation of the Orake sewer and the relining there. We are waiting on insurance receipts to be received, and whilst we have done a lot of work around loss adjusting and the reviewing of the 180 or so sites that were impacted by the floods, and also the Orake incident is still under investigation, we are yet to receive any insurance proceeds in relation to either of those events. Nevertheless, they are costing us, and they must continue to cost us because we must complete the work on both of those issues. From an insurance perspective, obviously we are making good progress now on the assessment, and we are very positive about the expectations of receipts being received in the forthcoming financial year, not this year. In terms of Central Interceptor is the second major reason for this request. As you will all be aware, we've had an update to our final outturn cost on the Central Interceptor, excluding Point Erin extension, that is, to an increase to $1.5 billion next week or in the coming week, how we're going to, if you like, remedy the situation in terms of our debt position, and that will be made clear through those LTP discussions. So this is indeed short-term cash borrowing that we need to get us to the end of June without causing any issues or further issues to our contractual position or the position of our capital program. I think I'll leave it there. Perhaps pass back to you.
Thanks, Jamie. So, as Jamie mentioned, the Council Finance and Treasury team have been working closely with Watercare on this request, and we have considered the group implications if this ask of 130 million of additional debt is approved. Jamie outlined that any ongoing interest-related costs of this extra debt is covered by Watercare revenue, so there's no rates impact for the council in terms of general rates. However, there would be an impact on the group debt to revenue ratio, all else being equal, against the current year's annual plan. We estimate the impact being 2 to 3% on our group debt to revenue ratio. However, based on current forecasts, we can't talk too much about half-year results because of NZX rules and the like, but we estimate that the current forecast of the debt to revenue ratio being around 240%, which is well below the long-term target of 270%. And just touching on the nature of the request being largely a timing issue, and that's basically because of the insurance receipts timing. So when that insurance payout is received, that reduces the future debt requirements for Watercare, and also, as Jamie pointed out, the Mayor's proposal and the letter of expectation has outlined a clear limit of 340% for future debt to revenue for Watercare. So our group, the recommendation is to approve the request, but obviously there is an impact on group debt to revenue, but manageable within the group settings. So happy to take questions, and we've also got support from John from the Treasury team if there's any other more technical questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I've asked for an E to be going in there that somehow or other addresses and puts a bit of discipline here so that as of next year you are resetting at 340. So I've got a bit of wording. John Bishop, would you like to add something? Sorry to be a pain, but I want discipline.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You're going to put up the E or?
Working on an E here, I thought you were going to add...
The proposal of the E is to have the debt being repaid by a certain date or on receipt of the insurance proceeds.
That was mine.
Yeah,
I was wanting to say that this would be that you would reset next year's business plan on 340% and pay back on receipt of insurance. I don't think that's onerous. That's what you said you'd do. So I am proposing that E goes up as expected on receipt to return to 3, or some words to that effect. You happy with that, Jamie? Can you live with that? That's what you said.
Oh, that's 1 July or receipt of insurance proceeds. So that's later.
Yeah, the insurance receipts will be later than that, so they will be later in the year. We're not sure yet exactly when.
I think it's covered by the or, so it's a later.
I'll give you 1 January 25. That should give you plenty of time.
1 January?
Yeah, 1 January 25. People up, I'm proposing that to put a bit of discipline here. And I've got 2 questions. I'll go to Kenneth Turner, followed by Shane Henderson, followed by Julie Ferry, followed by Mark Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just made me think of something when you were speaking there, and we're talking about adaptation. When you were talking about
pipes being fixed, etc., we went from fix 1 to fix 2 to adaptation, which is a confusion with the insurance as far as betterment and upgrade and all that sort of stuff goes. So just, you know, how clear is the discussion with the insurance companies? You know, how, you know, we as, just that's the risk on that clause that's just been put up there. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor. Yeah, look, it is a risk. It was a slow start, to be fair, to the assessment process, given the bow wave of issues that the insurance industry deal with following the floods. But we're in a pretty good place now, I think, in terms of assessment of these sites and the risk and the loss associated with that. So to your point on timing, there is a risk. We can probably get a bit of an update on that for you, if you like, in terms of where we're at exactly, which might be helpful for the council to know. But we certainly made a lot of progress over the last few months.
I'm just trying to drill down on how clear you are on what you're expecting your return, your payout to be.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, again, that, you know, we obviously, as Steve pointed out, it was circa, I think the impact was circa 80 million or so. We'll just have to work out with our insurers how much of that we're going to get covered.
Thank you.
So just to add to that, I mean, this is a group claim, and look, in reality, there will be arguments around the margin of what's forms part of the claim or not. So we probably can expect in reality is a reasonable chunk of what we're asking for to be paid out, and, you know, probably a bit more of a delay in some discussions around the remaining, you know, 10-20%. That's typically how these things will probably work.
Sounds like my negotiations with the Minister of Transport. Councillor Henderson, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question relates to point 36 of the report. Is this projected to have any impact on people's water bills?
Well, no, not in the short term, but obviously Watercare has that balance of funding its program through either revenue or debt funding. So if the financing or the debt funding is not available, the option therefore is rate. So we'll talk more about that, I think, in the LTP session, which is really about how we go forward from here. But in today, as of today, no. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that, Councillor Ferry, please.
No, my question's been answered, but can I just clarify, are we changing that to 2025? Because it still says 2024.
Just so you check, I don't want to add any confusion here to E, but if you look at the Watercare debt request, it's made up of around about 50 million, which is permanent, relating mainly to the central interceptor, and 80 million, which is temporary. So I assume that we're asking them to pay back in full the temporary extra debt of 80 million, and that effectively is on receipt of the insurance proceeds.
Yeah, I'm not wed to any particular wording, but I just want to have it in there, and in fact my Chief of Staff has suggested that we might change A to 130 million until 1 January 2025. And that solves that problem. Or either of those. It might be polishing of Lily too much.
Yeah,
I think that does very much.
That won't resolve the problem because the insurance proceeds are still uncertain. And you've still got 50 million here, which is permanent, and 80 million, which is roughly temporary.
If I might, I think what we're looking for here is something that refers to that portion of this that is subject to the insurance claims process.
That's right, and that is approximate. That is about, we've estimated the impact to be about 30 million of this request relates specifically to the insurance cost that we have absorbed some. We're not sure what the total receipts will be though, so it should be more than that.
Nevertheless, we are expecting you to set next year's things on the basis of 340%. In the midst of all this, of course, we are negotiating with the government about the way that we solve the issues associated with debt and the change from what was once called Three Waters. wanting to have something that is signifies the importance of the temporary to the council, but doesn't actually restrict the ability of Watercare to function as an entity. So I think there's a little bit of thing. I'll just follow through the questions and we'll
It was just on this. Are you able to have a 1 minute break or something just to, because I think it might be
they're
easier
working
than
through
us
that
trying
and I'll going through the questions at the same time. So contemporaneously, we're going to try and learn to do two things at once this year, which is a bit of a shock to everybody. Have you got, who is next? I'll go back to Councillor Turner, then Councillor Ferry's got new. Okay, Councillor Turner.
Thank you. Just for my clarification again, because there's $30 million worth of there's $80 million worth of suspected insurance claim, correct? Of which you're not sure about how much you're getting paid out. Is it 80 or 30?
So the impacts, as Steve outlined, are looking like equating to around $80 million. So that's going to be the impacts that we're going to have seen. We have been obviously remediating, paying, fixing both OPEX and CAPEX over the last few months. What we're saying is that for this year, this financial year, the cash implication has amounted to about $30 million.
Can I ask in this forum, I know there's, maybe some stuff we can't say, how much is being claimed and how much,
The expectation.
The expectation of how much you can pay back has become quite unclear to me.
Well, to John's point, it's a group claim, and whenever we receive the funds, whenever we submit the claim and finalise it, which is still in progress, we will have a much better handle on that number. Yeah, so I don't know today.
So when you say a group claim, we're talking about community facilities claims for park stuff and stuff is all in this we're talking about, is it?
Yes, that's correct. So we have a group property insurance policy which covers council and all the CCOs and the port.
Man, sometimes I feel absolutely thick. That's a really important thing that somehow I haven't grabbed through weeks of discussion. I don't know how I miss it, but I don't think maybe it's delivered to me as clearly as it could be. So the water care portion of this is small, right?
Depends if you call 80 million small, I guess.
Sorry, just to clarify. Sorry, just to
I
clarify.
think he's saying the water care's part is 80 million. The total claim across the whole thing is what? 300, isn't he?
No, we think we're probably looking now towards sort of 120-ish, but again, still being worked through. 130 maybe.
So hang on, for my clarity again, please. So 80 million of this is a water care thing, and we're going to get back a portion of that. I'm trying to work out in my head how much I think that you'll be giving us back when that claim's paid out.
Well, from a group point of view, we'd hope to get back around 130. From a water care point of view, of that 130, they'd receive about 80.
We're not talking about the groups borrowing here, we're talking about money just for water care, and we're talking about water care's ability to pay it back, and that is quite significant to how much water care expects to get as their portion of the insurance payout, correct?
So just to clarify, so in the current year annual plan, water care made a provision of 80 million of storm-related repair costs, which had the equivalent level of insurance recoveries anticipated. However, due to the timing of when these receipts are going to be received based on how the claims are progressing currently, that 80 million, if that is what the claim is approved to be, will be received in the next financial year. But some of those costs have already been incurred, the Oraki main sewer and so on. So 30 million of costs will fall into the current financial year, and that is the additional debt that's been requested now. But when the insurance payout is received in the next financial year, debt will be paid down by that amount, which at this moment is anticipated to be around 80 million, but still needs to go through an approval process.
Thank you. Okay.
Councillor Lee.
Yes, the recommendations in some ways are reassuring. Additional borrowings are largely temporary. No impact on Auckland Council's operating budgets and so on. But actually, I find this quite troubling. This is a blowout 6 months after 485 million was budgeted at Watercare's request, a 27% blowout in effect of your borrowing budget. Now, the causes are outlined in the introductory paragraph. Auckland anniversary and Cyclone Gabrielle events and the Oraki main sewer. Well, my problem is that the Auckland anniversary and Cyclone Gabrielle events were almost 6 months before we signed off the annual plan. So the fact that the actuarial work and budgeting work wasn't done on time is a worry if this is the genuine reason for the blowout. I have to say I'm going to support this, but I am concerned because I think this is a red flashing light that there are systemic problems now for the first time, I believe, in many decades of successful operation within Watercare services.
Okay, fair enough. Nobody likes these sorts of things, but they do occur from time to time. I must admit, it's kind of weakened some of this rosy language about how the fact that, unlike CRL, you had no cost overruns. You have had some. Everyone gets them. So the moment you think you're better than everybody else, it just goes to show that it's an unwise claim. I think we're just about through. Oh, sorry, I've got more. Morris Williamson has come to light. Are you there, Morris?
Just quickly, do you really mean whichever is later or whichever comes first?
We mean whichever is later.
Really? Because the insurance settlement could go on for some years.
Just another thing to point out in relation to...
Hasn't the Mayor set a hard date of either 1 Jan or if the final insurance comes in earlier than that?
I did set a hard date, but then several other cooks have joined the broth.
Well, just think about what it reads now. It says whichever is later, and that could be 2026.
Okay, in my view, I think we just scrub it and go back to 1 January 2025, and if it isn't then, they can come back and ask for more.
I think the key aspect here is actually, you know, depending on what happens with government legislation and so on, putting that aside, the direction from the council is that Watercare must remain within 340% debt to revenue. So regardless of if the insurance proceeds are received in 6 months or 8 months or 12 months' time, Watercare still need to put forward a plan that's compliant with the 340%. Now, when the insurance proceeds are received, that would slightly reduce that, but their actual debt to revenue below whatever the percentages that they land on for next year's annual plan, if that makes sense.
But if you're ever putting a hard date and a conditional date, it should always be whichever comes first, because the conditional date you might get the payout in October.
Yes, Councillor.
Through you, Chair, can I suggest we just have it on receipt of insurance proceeds?
That takes out the hard date.
That would be preferable as because the debt would be paid down when the insurance proceeds are received, but regardless of that, Watercare need to remain below 340%.
I've been asked to adjourn for a couple of minutes while the wordsmiths polish their pencils and come up with something which does what I want.
I did ask for that a little while ago.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But then again, so we'll adjourn on this, although we're adjourning on that. But if Desley has a question which has nothing to do with this wording.
It was to do with wording. I mean, I was going to say what Promoter said. The problem here, Your Worship, is that these guys, one, have to live within their debt ratio, but 2, don't know when they're going to get their insurance paybacks, right? 3, you want a hard date. I think we all will buy into that, but we've got to be real. You can't have a hard date if these guys don't get their insurance premiums back. So, well, you can come back, but I mean, what we need the wording what we need to say, listen guys, this is temporary. You know it's temporary because you're waiting for something that you haven't yet got, right? On the CRL, you know, that's the permanent. We've bought into that, we understand that. But on the 80, we've got to have a look, you're asking for a bit of flexibility. I don't like it, if I'm honest with you, especially on the day where we've just lost a whole lot of other money. But it's absolutely necessary to do. So we'll wait and see what the wordsmiths comes. But my real question was, you can't put a hard date if you haven't got the payback from the insurance. You can put it there you can put it there as a hopeful, but it's actually beyond their control. You're waiting for somebody else to give it back.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Take your seats again. There's been a bit of a kerfuffle here, but we have worked together to come up with something or other, which is essentially to get the important part of it. So it is a request for a temporary additional headroom. And under C, we note that water care is to return to below 340% debt to revenue for the next financial year. That sums it up that way. It's up to them to manage the insurance along with John. And they do have the opportunity, if it all turns to custom, to come back anyhow. But that is what we're going to move. I have moved that amendment, and the Deputy Mayor has seconded that. And so you've all heard. I don't have anybody else wanting to speak listed at the moment. Anybody else want to speak on this? I think we're going to move this. It's moved, seconded. I'm going to put this. All those in favour of this, please say aye. To the contrary. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Try not to do that again, please. And I'm going to terminate this meeting. Thank you for your attendance.